He sat in that waiting room for 3 hours, holding a folder of medical records he already knew by heart. When the letter finally came, it wasn't long. It didn't need to be. 3 words were all it took to undo everything his doctor had fought for. Not medically necessary. This is a true-to-life composite case. Names and identifying details changed, based on patterns that happen to real families more often than most people realize. This one's a little harder to tell. Stay with us. Let's call him David. 43 years old, married to Elena, father to 2 kids, 9 and 12. He worked steady hours at a logistics company for 15 years, the kind of job that isn't glamorous but pays the bills and comes with decent health insurance. David was careful with money. He read every open enrollment packet. He picked the plan with better coverage, even though it cost a little more each month. He did everything right. It started small. Fatigue that didn't go away with rest. A persistent ache that David tried to ignore for weeks, the way a lot of people do when they're worried about what a doctor might say, or worried about what it might cost to find out. Eventually, Elena convinced him to go in. After tests, then more tests, the diagnosis came back. A condition serious enough to need a specific surgical procedure. Not an emergency, but not something to leave untreated for long, either. David's doctor was direct with him. Left alone, it would likely get worse. Treated now, the outlook was good. That night, David and Elena allowed themselves a small breath of relief. It was scary, but it was treatable. And they had insurance. Good insurance, the kind David had specifically chosen because it covered exactly this sort of thing. 15 years of premiums, paid faithfully, for a moment just like this one. David's doctor submitted the request for pre-authorization, the standard first step before a procedure like this. It's normally routine, a formality. Something that happens quietly in the background while patients focus on getting ready for treatment. 10 days passed, then 2 weeks. David kept working, kept showing up for his kids' dinners and homework and bedtime routines, trying to carry on as normally as he could, while quietly checking his phone every evening for a message from the insurance company that wasn't coming yet. When the letter finally came, David almost didn't want to open it. He stood on the porch for a moment, just holding it. Then he opened it anyway. Denied. The procedure his doctor called necessary, the one meant to treat a condition that would only get worse without it. Denied, in 3 words, not medically necessary. David read it twice, then a third time, hoping the words might rearrange themselves into something different. They didn't. When Elena found him in the kitchen, she didn't need him to explain. She could see it on his face before he said a single word. Here's what almost nobody understands until they're standing exactly where David was. When an insurance company says a treatment isn't medically necessary, that's not a medical opinion in the way you'd expect. It's a coverage decision made using the insurer's own internal set of clinical guidelines, reviewed, in many cases, by a physician employed by or contracted to the insurance company who has never met the patient and often has not examined a single test result in person. Your own doctor's judgment and the insurer's definition of necessary are not always the same thing, and when they conflict, the default answer is often no. It's not usually personal, and it's rarely about David specifically. Insurers use not medically necessary as a broad, flexible standard precisely because it's subjective enough to apply widely, to control costs across millions of claims at once. That doesn't make it feel any less devastating when it's your family standing on the receiving end of it. David and Elena were left with an impossible set of choices. Pay for the procedure out of pocket, tens of thousands of dollars they didn't have sitting anywhere. Wait, and hope the condition didn't progress the way the doctor warned it might. Or fight the denial, with no guarantee it would work, and no idea how long it might take. This is the part that doesn't usually make it into the paperwork. The sleepless nights. The short tempers over small things that weren't really about small things at all. Their oldest noticed something was wrong before anyone explained it to her. Kids usually do. Fighting an insurance denial isn't just a phone call inconvenience. For a lot of families, it's months of quiet, exhausting wait carried alongside everything else life still expects of you. After a difficult week, David and Elena decided they weren't going to accept no as the final word. His doctor's office had seen denials like this before, more often than either of them expected. There was a path forward. It just meant fighting for it. David's doctor wrote a detailed letter of medical necessity, citing clinical guidelines and David's specific test results. They requested what's called a peer-to-peer review, a direct conversation between David's doctor and the insurance company's reviewing physician, doctor to doctor, instead of letter to form. It's a formal right most patients don't even know they have. During that call, David's doctor walked the insurance reviewer through exactly why the procedure fit the clinical guidelines the insurer itself had published. Point by point, test result by test result. It took 26 minutes. It changed everything. 9 days later, a second letter arrived. This time, it was approved. Full coverage, the procedure scheduled within the month. 6 weeks after the original denial, David finally got the treatment his doctor had recommended from the very beginning. There wasn't a big celebration, mostly just quiet relief. The kind that comes after carrying something heavy for a long time and finally being allowed to set it down. David still remembers exactly how that second letter felt in his hands. Lighter than the first one, somehow, even though it was the same size. Here's the part that matters most for anyone watching this who might be facing something similar right now. A meaningful share of health insurance denials citing not medically necessary are overturned on appeal. Sometimes through a formal appeal letter, sometimes through exactly the kind of peer-to-peer review that worked for David. But most people never appeal at all. Not because they don't have a case, often because they're exhausted, or they don't know the option exists, or they simply assume the first answer is the final one. So here's what actually matters. 1. A denial citing not medically necessary is not automatically the final answer. It's often just the first one. 2. You have the right to request a peer-to-peer review, where your own doctor speaks directly with the insurer's reviewing physician. Ask your doctor's office if they've done this before, because many have. 3. Gather your specific test results and clinical documentation before you appeal. Specificity is usually what turns a denial into an approval. If you're watching this because you or someone you love just opened a letter like the one David got, take a breath first. It's a lot to carry, and it's okay to feel however you're feeling about it right now. But a denial is very often a starting point, not an ending. You have more options than that letter makes it feel like you do. This channel exists to read the fine print so you don't have to find out the hard way. The phrases insurance companies rely on, and the quiet rights most people never know they have. If this helped, subscribing means the next case file lands in front of you before you need it, not after. Next time, he paid his premiums faithfully for 12 years, and his claim was still rejected. We'll show you exactly why and what he did about it. See you there.